Welcome to Booklandia, where we review romance novels.
This and every episode are chock full of oversharing and spoilers. Every episode is rated E for explicit. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Booklandia. I am Ford.
And I'm Sky. And the new the intro that we've been using all of this year, and I keep calling it the new intro. The new intro is super short and catches me off guard every time that it is time to start the episode. And those 4 seconds are gone.
Surprise, we're back.
Surprise, we are here. Exactly.
I want to say I thoroughly enjoyed that we showed up in our knitwear for this episode.
Oh, most definitely. This is exactly why I'm wearing what I'm wearing. Because today oh my gosh, because today we are talking about Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. Oh, I did not kill that.
Hey, good job. I had to spell it out in my head. Great job.
It's the L.
So thank God it was you.
The L really trips me up. This is not a new book. This book is actually quite old, has been out since, turns out, and I did not know this, 1991. So whoa. Yeah. Obviously the TV show is super popular.
Came out.
Yes.
Yeah, the first book came out in 91. The most recent book, the 9th book, came out in 2021.
Yes, right. Like that.
So series.
Ongoing series, indeed.
And the show started in 2014, 2015, something like that.
It started in, I will tell you exactly, because it's affiliated with a time I spent alone at home. Well, not alone, but at home for an extended period of time, which is how I caught up on watching it. And it was 2014.
Yeah. So I started this book series because the TV show was coming out. And I read each book before the season starts. So I'm due to read the 6th book because the 6th season is coming out. Or the 5th book and the 5th season's coming out. Whatever. I lost track of.
No, you said it right the first time. I believe it's 6 and 6 that is happening to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those people who are very unfamiliar with what's going on, shall I tell them what the first book is about? Wait, I've forgotten the cover.
Here's one of the multitude of covers.
Yes.
It's a very electric blue background with a crown and some sort of flower weed growing out of the crown, and then it says Outlander and the author's title.
Yeah, if we're cooler people, we would have probably looked up whose crest that flower was.
I mean, shall we just suppose it's the Fraser crest?
Or a weed is
just
sweet Brett. For those of you who don't know the reference, that's in the book. That is their motto. That's the Fraser motto. Jamie Fraser is one of the main characters. All right, I'm going to read this. It's going to be a thing.
Read my very terribly written blurb. Good luck. I hate it. I think it's terrible. So just make it better, could you, please?
Let's see if I can. All right. 3, 2, 1. Claire is enjoying her honeymoon in Scotland after the Second World War when she falls through a standing stone into the 1740s, where she meets Highlander Jamie Fraser. She must survive and fit in while dodging suppositions that she's a witch and helping people navigate through a history that she is familiar with. All of that. Yes. She's a nurse at this point. She is a physician's assistant, which is relevant to the witch comment. And she was a nurse in the infantry, and she served as in the infantry, in the Doctor's Legion, I guess. I do not know the name for this in the UK. In the Second World War. So she is a field surgeon. Like, she knows a lot of field prep and how to triage really well, which is how she gets to be labeled as a witch, because she uses all of these field, I put that in quotes, available things to her in 1740 to help people not die. Mostly, there's a lot of not dying because of her, and they're mad about it, which is
well, they're just ignorant to the future, ignorant to future science, as I would be if I was an 18th century person. So,
yes.
yeah. I didn't write the part that she was a nurse because honestly, I didn't remember if she was a doctor or a nurse and when that happened.
She doesn't become a doctor until after the first book, when she goes, spoiler, when she goes back into the 1940s, and then she becomes one of the first women surgeons after they moved to America.
Right.
Because
so I remembered that bit, but I didn't remember when the doctoring happened. So, anywho. Yeah. It having read 5 books, it is hard for me to keep the end of one book separate from the beginning of another book. Luckily, it's usually there's usually a standing stone time traveling bookend, especially for the first one, but almost all of them have some sort of time traveling element to it. I'm just gonna like jump to one of my thoughts. We're kind of doing this a different structure than our usual episode, so just go with the flow, everybody. Just enjoy. Do because of this time traveling element, do you consider this first book or this whole series of books to be magical realism, to be fantasy? I think they're just straight up shelved fiction, but like romance, where would you categorize these books?
Well, time travel is fantasy, or science fiction, I guess, could be a good spot for it. I would not call it fabulism or magical realism, because that implies the existence of non-real things in everyday life. And for them, the standing stones and their particular family history and their specific, like, there is a formula for traveling through the stones.
Right.
A jewel is required.
So,
you have to be a particular family member, and yet you have to be at the standing stone. So there's not like
and you
magic.
have to hear it.
And you have to hear it. So, right. And yeah, the stone has to be singing to you. So having said all of that, I don't think it's fabulism or magical realism, because there isn't everyday magic.
Yes, but traditionally with fantasy, you either have a soft or hard magical structure. So
this is really sci-fi.
Magical realism. Yeah, but it is. I don't know that I agree with that either. I don't know that I like that. That doesn't feel true.
I mean, it is truly the definition of fiction, right? It is a fictitious thing that happened. And right, Time Traveler's Wife is also shelved in general fiction.
That's true. That's very true. And definitely, I would definitely not romance, because there's no happily ever after at the end of this book. So women's fiction?
I mean, a lot of women would agree with that. They've definitely been reading it for that reason. Okay, so a couple of things to know about this book in case you're like, I'm really thinking about jumping in. This one of 9 books is 850 pages long. That's book 1. Every one of the books has been the same, if not larger. So
yes, they are a doorstop. My Kindle says that I would read it in 13 and a half hours. And I'm a pretty fast reader, so put that into your thought bank. Now book 1, it didn't feel like 13 and a half hours. Book 5 felt like 13 and a half hours. The whole first third of that book was pointless, and I could have thrown it out the window.
So and we will get to, so I read this book in 2016. It's been a while. And I went back to Goodreads and read my review. And we're going to read my review later on in the episode, because it is a lot, but I did originally abandon the book. So it was originally on my
Oh,
DNF
okay.
shelf. I did eventually get through it, but I found even book one to be too
Interesting.
dense, too much of a thing. So,
So because I've liked this book, specifically number 1 so much, it has become really helpful in me knowing historical like, British historical timelines. 'Cause, having read The Vanished Days last year by Susanna Kearsley, it's set sort of just after these events, and I was like, "Oh, yeah." The second rebellion of Bonnie Prince Charlie trying to get his throne back from, the King George. No, was it George at this time? I can't remember. See, maybe not so good at history. I think it was George at this time. And like, oh, I'm like, that's very clearly 1750s. I now have Scottish timeline in my knowledge bank, which is like, isn't that why you read to fucking learn shit
oh
through
yeah, for sure.
osmosis?
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, while enjoying a book, you also accidentally learn some history and it's actually
Right.
accurate. That's great. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
um here is I feel like maybe your question might be a good idea. I'm not
Sure.
sure. It's very long and there's a lot in there. Before we get into it, I want to make it clear that you really like this book. And the reason we were going to make this episode
Mhm.
structured differently is because you like the series and I
Yeah.
vehemently, hell no, do not. I have a lot of really strong feelings
Sure.
and all of them are nay, nay, nay.
Here's what I'm gonna say, and I'll probably reiterate it multiple times, but, like, if you're just here and you wanna cut to the chase, the first 3 books are great. The first trilogy, I'm all for. Starting around book 4 and 5, my interest has wavered. The books start to talk more about, Brianna, who fucking spoiler alert, is Jamie and Claire's daughter. And, who is raised in the '60s, the 1960s, and travels back through the stones with her
Roger.
husband, with Roger, who I absolutely hate and find really pointless as a human being and as a character, and I really don't like the actor in the show about it. Come at me. Um and so, like, since they've become the central point in the next trilogy, I just care much less. But what I keep reading for is the historical parts of this. So I believe book 6 is the introduction of the Revolutionary War in America,
Yes.
which they are pulled into, and that feels hella interesting to me. After that, I don't know if I'll keep reading, but that will be the end of the second trilogy, and lo and behold, there's 2 more books, so who knows? And there's also a side series, the Lord Grey series. Did you know about this?
Nope. Nope. What?
So so Lord Grey, the guy who had a crush on Jamie,
Yes.
and was
And
kind of
then,
his patron.
yes.
Yeah. Um, he there's a whole side series with him. Are you just having whiskey? Are you just drinking if you're drinking whiskey, very on point, and I applaud you.
I am in fact drinking whiskey. It is
I love it.
American, so it like not fully on point. But yes, this is where we're at. We're at whiskey drinking already.
I'm whiskey drinking too. It's sweet tea.
That would have been a big
Okay.
glass of it. Okay, so
Yeah.
do you want me to go with my question? My question is more of a comment, less of a question. But here's what I need you guys to know. So
Okay.
the note in the script says, "Keep your damn underwear," and this is what I mean. Claire travels back through time to the 17 motherfucking 40s. And then
Mhm.
she's wearing a nightgown and some underwear
Yep.
when she does it
Uh-huh.
because she's not planning to time travel. She does it on accident. So then she gets
Yeah.
picked up by Jamie and his friends, and they're all like, wait, no, she gets picked up. I'm sorry. She gets picked up by the other guy whose name is Jack.
Jack Randall.
Randall. And we find, and Jack Randall looks exactly like her husband in the future, which is because he is a long ago descendant of her husband. And she runs to him because she thinks that it's her husband. He is not. He attempts to rape her. She is saved from that by Jamie and his friends, but they're all scandalized by what she's wearing. And so they immediately try to find her clothing more appropriate for a woman in the 1740s in the Highlands of Scotland. So for exposure purposes and hypothermia, woohoo.
Yeah.
What happens almost immediately is that her 1940s underwear, so her underwear, you guys, gets discarded. And she is then wearing knickers, or at this time in Scotland, I'm very sure it's just freeballing. It's petticoats, and your fully exposed hoo-ha. Now, here is my issue.
Okay.
Underpants. Keep protect your very vulnerable bits. It does not cost you anything to keep your underwear. Just keep your underwear, because at some point you're gonna have a period, and with underwear, it's a lot easier to care for that than it is without underwear, because free bleeding is just no fun to anyone. Unless you're a person who free bleeds, in which case, power to you. That's impressive. But that's a bunch to take care of. Underpants would really solve that, because they have that middle panel situation. You don't have to share your underwear with anyone. I realized that it would not be historically accurate, and it would break the paradigm of time travel if you introduced other people to underwear. But that middle crotch panel is the reason I would not time travel. Done. Rant done. Soapbox over.
Thank you for your middle panel TED Talk.
I really need the middle panel. It gets drafty.
You very much love the parts that touch your labia. Okay, great.
I like my labia really well protected.
Yes, absolutely. Same. My one commentary is about petticoats on petticoats, about Lady Freeballin', is the thing that most people are thinking about is that men in kilts also freeballin'. It's just thematic.
I mean, true.
Thematic.
Agreed, but they've been freeballing their entire life. You, a person from the now, show up over there, and then over there is your lady bits are ready for the freezing winter, and you're like, nah, man, my lady bits have been protected from the elements by the middle panel.
Great. So you haven't built up any calluses,
right, on the outside of your mitt. Yes. Exactly.
How long do you think it takes to build up labial calluses to the weather?
Dear Diana Gabaldon, please answer this question, because
inquiring minds need to know.
Exactly.
She probably also kept her. I'm trying to think of a classy / funny way to say it. She probably trimmed her bush, which also meant it was pretty drafty down there.
So
she blew that out.
I was gonna say, so actually, it's 1940s, so right after the war, so she didn't. And then in book, I have not read the book. I have seen the episodes though. When they go to France, she waxes it, and there's a whole thing about it.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Right. Yep, you're right. Okay, so we don't have to worry about draftiness in that regard.
Yeah, there's at least some layering, because when it happens, Jamie's like, oh my god, what did you do? So I assume that means that up until that point she was au naturel.
Excellent. Can you imagine icicles on your vaginal hair?
No, I mean, no, I have, and I am squeezing and cringing as we speak. No. No.
That is your Kegel work for the day. You're welcome. So, as I've mentioned, what I find really interesting about these books is the historical aspect. So Claire knows what the future holds for Scotland at this time. And no matter what she does, she can't stop the snowballing of the rise of Bonnie Prince Charlie. Again, this is the second time he's tried for this throne, and the Battle of Culloden, which will decimate the Scottish culture, and you know, all the men die essentially in this battle, and so she's doing everything she can to stop it, seeing that she can't stop it, and is trying to influence it in any way possible. Is that interesting to you? Do you think that is frustrating? Like, if you were pulled through time, wouldn't you think you were there for a purpose? And yet, for her, her purpose is pointless?
Yeah, so in her instance, I, I there are stories, and I think if you are a regular person who suddenly traveled through time, it would be assumptive of you, not wrongly so, that you had a specific purpose, and that is what she thinks, that her purpose is to stop the Battle of Culloden, which she does not succeed in doing.
Mm-mm.
And
Spoiler alert for the whole end of the book.
and if you have not caught up to any of this, so sorry. But I don't know that in the moment I would clearly see that my efforts aren't doing anything,
Mhm.
because I feel like she feels like she is trying to convince, she's trying to raise an army, she's trying to convince them not to fight, she's trying to approach the other side and convince them not to fight. Like, she's doing all of these things, and I think up until the very last moment, she thinks that her
Yeah.
efforts bring fruit.
Yeah.
And maybe they do,
Right.
right? Maybe the battle is like, Jamie Fraser is on the roster of the dead. And
Mhm.
what we don't know until, again, spoiler alert,
Mhm.
what is never made clear is whether or not he survives the battle and is accidentally put on that roster always, or if that is the rewritten history that she altered.
Right. Right. That's a good point. And he does a lot in that battle to protect the men of Lallybroch, who he is their clan leader. He's their laird. So like he saves a bunch of their lives too. Now they end up getting imprisoned and shipped to America for indentured servitude, but like he saves their lives. So yeah, like we don't know if how I don't know how much this deviates from actual history.
Right. What we know originally is that the only piece of information given to us in 1940 is that Jamie
Mhm.
Fraser dies in the Battle of
Right.
Culloden, and then he doesn't die, but he is recorded into the list of the dead. And
Right,
that
and
and
she believes that he's dead for
right,
the second book. Yeah,
that yeah. So
by
she
the way.
believes that that he did not survive that
Mhm.
battle, and she has crossed back into the modern day, or the her modern day, and she
Mhm.
finds the record of him being dead, and so she believes that he did not make it, which is why for the
Right.
next 20 years she doesn't go back.
Right. Exactly. I also just wonder if her entire purpose is to keep Jamie alive
And then
because
he is the cog that like sets everything in motion.
no, I'm just saying like dude gets a lot of injuries and
Oh
she
yeah.
is the one to keep him alive most
Oh
of the
yeah.
time.
A lot of the time she is the doctor that doctors him back to health.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
leads right into my next soapbox. This is not a question so much as it's a soapbox. Um,
Okay.
so Jamie to me was a like, he felt like he was made out of papier mache, and and she just kept slapping new layers onto this character, because so the scene after the Jamie and Claire are forced to get married. There's a reason why this happens. When they are married, they are forced to consummate their marriage, because it's the only
Mhm.
how it counts that they're married at this time. I have a lot to say about this, but continue on. And during their first sexual interaction, he's confused by lovemaking and is sure that it happens in the way that horses mate, which is misguided at best.
Virgin.
He is a virgin. So this is a bit confusing to me because even while a virgin, I was pretty clear on the concept of missionary position. And I realized that I maybe had more exposure, but everybody in the fucking village and beyond is either fucking or talking about it. So to imagine that this person was not told by any of their friends after any of the weddings how the butter gets churned is just...
Oh, no. Reject. I'm rejecting that one. No, thank you. I'm putting that in the box with his club and her area. I'm closing the lid, nailing it shut.
So my point is that, like, that seemed so unbelievable to me. And then within 20 pages of that ridiculousness, he is the leader of the clan. And I'm just like, so is he a man? A child? A horse breeder? A stable hand? Like, his entire existence was so all over the place that I was just like, is he 12? Is he 47? Where are we?
Well, he was always the leader of the Fraser clan. Like, he was always...
But he was unclear on, like, a bunch of stuff.
24, yeah. Okay, sure.
He's 24 in a country and in a time period where by 24 you should already be a parent, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that felt really far-fetched. And then I also felt like Claire's willingness to be like, I'm going to set aside my 1940s husband for my 1740s husband. Like, no shade, woman. Get what you want, but... there was, like, no processing at all. She was like, cool, put that on the shelf. Hello, new dick.
No, okay, hard disagree. She didn't think she could go back, so she was making butter out of the cream she had. I thought we should do a callback. And I think, wasn't it, if she didn't marry him, they were going to burn her at the stake for being a witch? So it was survival as well.
The stakes were higher.
Like, life or death. Yeah.
But I don't remember them like... And then, but I just remembered the first sexual encounter when it, like, as she gets to pulling down his pants, she's like, might as well.
Sure. I mean, they had to, again. Like, if it's life or death, and you just said consummation is the only proof of marriage, like, you had to. You had to. Also, she was always a very enthusiastic sexual being. Like, that's always been said.
Yes, it is very clear. But, like, there's just some stuff in there that I was like, I could have used some more maybe internal monologue or maybe external monologue. Particularly if he's like, do we do it like horses? And she's like, let me just de-pants you and we'll sort it out. And I'm like, maybe talk him through a bunch of stuff first.
Well, what I remember clearly is that she made him be on top. Instead of her being on top for his first time, she put him on top. So, like, there's some, like, I don't know, top bottom stuff going on that I'm not cool with, but, like, I remember very specifically that he was on top for his de-virginizing. So is that a weird thing to remember from a book I read so many years ago?
I remember the moment. Yeah, I remember the moments preceding that where he gets de-pantsed and she's like, might as well pull these down. And I was like, okay, that's maybe not what I would be thinking in that moment. But you do you, boo. And then it's like,
you boo.
Yeah. So, anyways, my point is that his character was really unclear to me the entire time. And so it starts out with him being this, like, shy, timid, we sleep in a barn,
Yeah.
we don't understand sexual consent situation.
Yeah.
And there's also like the fact that like they rescue her from being raped, and then
Mhm.
they joke about treating her like a
Like
sex
a
worker.
prostitute.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then they're
because
like,
of the way she was dressed.
because of the way
The way
she's
she was
dressed.
dressed.
Right. And then he's like, oh, hold up, I've never even like thought about
Mhm.
how parts go together. And I was like, I need more here. I need more explanation on how his brain works. Yeah, and then
I
I
always
did
imagined that this book was his, like, final journey into manhood. Like, he already had a lot of male responsibilities except for the ones expected in marriage, and, like, that was just the last step that he had to take to be a man or whatever? I don't know. That's always how I read into it.
this is not going to be a flattering comment to this book series, so I've already put it out there. But can I tell you that I am constantly conflating the storyline of this series with the storyline of Discovery of Witches? And I keep being like, wasn't he married
Interesting.
before? And I was like, wait, no, that's a different one and a completely different story.
One of them's a vampire, and one
I
of
know,
them's an actual witch.
I know. So it has nothing
So,
to do. Nope.
real vampires and witches, no one's a vampire, no one's a witch.
Hard agree. I have no idea why, but I mean, I have similar issues with both series, so maybe that's why.
Sure. Mm.
Um, also,
Well,
that's a show
so
to that's a series to do a different episode on.
could be. I remember way less of those, but excellent. Good point. Um, when this when the show was getting popularized,
Yeah.
marketed, that's the word. Oh lord. I read an article in Entertainment Weekly about it. And the article had this infographic that's like one of those like body outlines basically that you see on like medical paperwork about like where injuries are. And it was all the injuries that Jamie Fraser had accrued in the books up until that point, 2014 or so. And like attacked by a bear. He gets his hand crushed in this book, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
book 2.
No, it's in
Like,
this
his
book.
entire hand is decimated. He's already you meet him and he's already been, like, graphically whipped and has these terrible scars on his back. Like, all of this stuff happens to him. He gets bitten by a snake in a little in a poisonous snake in a later book. Like, all this crazy shit, and that is my first memory of this story is, like, this guy can't die, and then thank God she's a nurse because she fucking keeps him alive. She rebuilds his hand and does, like, not tension, the things that you put on to keep your hand from moving, like, she builds that for him. It's just it's crazy to me, and he should have died a million times, and Claire saved him, and I think maybe that's her entire purpose, is just to keep this guy alive so he can change history. Ooh, I don't like that. I don't like the misogyny of that,
Yeah, yeah, that's
but
sort of a thing.
mhm.
I mean, a shout out not to the book, but to the makeup team. Sorry, a shout
Ah,
out to the makeup team of the show, because
yes.
the scar tissue that is his
Mhm.
back, and every time they do like a 360 shot,
Yep.
every time, and he's shirtless, I think about the
Mhm.
hours and hours of makeup that they have to do to make that shot. And so the number of
Yeah.
times that he takes his shirt off and we do not see his back is because they don't
Yeah.
have the time or the money to
Right?
make that shot be accurate to what
Yeah.
is supposed to be the history of his scars.
Yeah, from what I've read, it's a piece. It's just like a single piece or back piece of some kind, and then they just have to do the edging for it,
Right.
which I think helps. I mean, nice tangent. Let's talk about the show a little bit.
Okay, well, shout out to all the special effects on that show, because the special effects are
Yeah.
spectacular, and I feel like they're really minute. So one of the other things that happens, that like when this happened on screen, I might have reached out to you, I might have screamed, I might have done both, but Jamie's sister is
Mhm.
has a baby, and is then nursing that child and then has to be away from the child. So she's engorged and she has to relieve all of the milk that she has produced. And so on screen, she unveils a boob and squeezes it to release some of the to let down some of the milk. It looks absolutely spectacular, but I know that it's a special effect. Like, I know that the actress isn't actually producing milk in that moment. It was created. And my brain immediately went, how did they do it? Like, what is the mechanism to make this happen? And it looks spectacular. It looks so realistic. And I felt, and at the time I was breastfeeding, so I felt physical relief for her. I was like, yes.
Your breasts were like, yes, excellent.
It was excellent. That aside, I do think that there's some really lovely history in there and really great research that went into it. When we go to France, I have some questions, but prior to France, it's really spectacular.
Yeah. Okay. I have to give my shout out. I love Bear McCreary. He is the person who does their music score. He is known for Battlestar Galactica. Like, he's one of the best composers in the business right now. And they change the intro music a little bit every season, which I think is awesome. And then also the costumes. I really like the costumes. I know that you have a very finite view on it, but like, we wore our heavy knits because they do a lot of heavy knitwear in the show, and I love it.
Yeah,
I think it's
if you're part of the fiber community, if you knit or crochet, there was an uptick
fiber
in
community.
That is the
I've never heard it before.
Hi, that is the real thing. But there's been
Fiber Squad.
There's been an uptick in Outlander stuff, and one of the greatest, and I feel like this is not in the first or the second season. There is an episode where Claire is invited to a yarn dyeing sit-in with the other women, and they drink cider and then they pee on the yarn because that is how you color fast things in that time period, which is true. And so it's this absolutely wonderful, historically accurate how-to. Oh, yes. It's such a nerdy. So much nerdery. But I was like, yes, this is exactly how you color fast things before vinegar, because you need an acid. And uric acid works really well. Yeah, I was like, this feels like a very fantastic, like, I have never had a pee together girl squad in my life, but I feel like this would be an amazing opportunity in the past to have joined a girl squad, drink and pee together while telling each other the gossip of the town.
The hot goss. Well, I like in season 5, she gets a microscope, which are new technology for the time. And she also is trying to grow penicillin from bread. And she's doing all these experiments to try and make penicillin to keep her people alive. God damn it. And I think that that's the really fun, interesting stuff as well. Yes.
So my question here, and this is really all about time travel, but when heading back through the stones, just take some analgesics with you.
She did, and then she used them all. She could only fit 5 in her skirt or whatever, and she brought needles and syringes back, and then she had to figure out how to make syringes in that time period. So, you have to go to the glass blower and you have to get to the metal person and yeah.
I have not seen this season, the 5th season at all.
I see.
It's fine.
Well,
it's on
I'm
the list.
Sure they bleed a wound out using a snake's fang, because they're hollow like a needle is. So I think that's where the idea comes from. Yeah. Very interesting. Anywho, I have to say my number one celebrity crush is Sam Heughan as Jamie Fraser, and I'm not sorry about it. He's the most handsome man on earth, second to my spouse, whom I love very much. Thank you for editing this podcast for us, babe. You're the best. but like perfect piece of man. But like him as a person, I'm like, you exercise too much. I'm not into this. But Jamie Fraser, there we
I
go.
see. I see. Um,
Uh,
that makes sense.
book
Okay,
boyfriend. He's my
book
book
boyfriend.
boyfriend.
Got
I'm gonna
it.
say it.
I mean,
Declaring it.
there you go. Um,
Yeah. Do you want to end this
I
segment with your
know.
really depressing question?
I know. I was about to ask exactly that. So this is
Yeah.
something that gets talked about in relation to the Outlander series a lot, and I do think that it's absolutely necessary to bring up. There is a lot of rape in the
Yeah.
series, and there's a
Yep.
lot of I want to say glorified rape. Like it's not really
Mhm.
glorified so much as it's excused. And the
Right.
comment is, well, this is the historical reality of women in that time period. And though that very
Mhm.
much can be true, the counter argument to that is that maybe the historical reality, but maybe we don't need to put it graphically on the
Yeah.
page.
Right.
Um, and
One of
like,
the instances that it makes me think of is when she has to sleep with the king of France to get Jamie out of trouble, out of prison, something like that. I'm like, "Oh, so she has to let him rape her in order to help her husband."
yes.
So frustrating.
And then even if that particular storyline stays, we're in the room with it. Like we
Yeah.
live through it with her. And I
Yeah.
don't know. And there are quite a few other instances where the entirety of the rape experience is like flushed out in really specific details
Yeah.
to the degree where it is almost taking up as much of the book as the
Mhm.
consensual sexual experiences.
I mean, so in book 1, I think it's book 1, again, you have to tell me, Jamie is raped by another man.
Yes, it is in book
And
one.
his but which is terrible, and, uh, I'm I I'm not gonna say it's good to see that too, like, Claire gets raped far more often than Jamie does, that's for sure. Um, what I find interesting is that it's about his journey through that. There's a lot about him coming out of that and how does one person heal themselves from such a traumatic experience?
Yes, and I do think that that conversation is in there for like 20
Mhm.
pages.
See, I mean, again, it's been a while since I've read it. I felt like it was more. Um, it's interesting to me to see a man's journey through that because we don't. There's not a lot of stories that have a man being assaulted, sexually assaulted.
I fully agree. So the issues
But
here
yeah,
is how much rape is glorified or just put on the
right.
page altogether
Yeah,
without really a trigger warning at
that's
all.
true.
There is really
That's
not
true.
one. And the 1991 version of this book was in the land before time when we did not do trigger
Mhm.
warnings. But the
Mhm.
20-year anniversary edition, I certainly hope contains the trigger warning. I know that this version, the blue cover that I read in 2016, did not have a trigger warning in it at all, did not
Yeah,
have content
no.
warnings of any kind. And those scenes are very specific. So, in case
Yeah.
this is not a thing you want to be reading for many pages, this whole
Mhm.
series should
Yeah.
be
Whole
avoided.
yeah. I think every book has something, like, something happens to Brianna. You
Yeah,
haven't seen this either, so you don't know.
she gets sexually assaulted more than once. One of them is about the
Mhm.
ring, her mother's ring, in the previous season on
Right.
the boat. But
Yeah.
yes, and that is
But
a
I
full on like she pays for the ring.
right. Right. That helped me remember in book 5 when she and Roger get married, they have sex, and it I think to consummate their hand fasting, they got hand fasted, and it triggers her from her rape. So, it felt like a rape scene. in of itself because of how she reacted to it in the moment. So yes, I think every book has one. Yeah, it's tough, and you have to know that going in.
So it is, and I mean, this book series has a huge
Mm.
viewership and a huge readership,
Mhm.
and it does. So the conversation here is that it talks about rape in a way that does not condemn it or put it away or makes it a thing that we do not give time and space to. It gives a lot of time and space
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
those really specific experiences. And I don't know that it has to. And at 850 pages, you can lose the 20 pages of gratuitous sexual violence.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't put a thought to that, like the books without that. Uh, but yeah, I'm gonna agree because of the outcomes, the negative outcomes don't outweigh the point of the storytelling in my mind. So, right.
I mean, I would have loved, 100 pages on how Jamie is processing and 10 pages
Mhm.
on the event
Right.
itself. And it's the other way around. We live in
Sure.
that cell with him while he's being
Yeah.
tortured for a really long time.
Mhm.
And we live in him
Mhm.
processing for about 20 pages and a sex scene in the mud bath with her or in front of the fire with her. And I have a lot of questions as to how his hand isn't getting hurt while they're doing all the things that they're doing. So I get to that
She's
later
a
in this
very
episode.
good doctor.
No, it's just gratuitous sex, is all it is.
Yes, that is why I liked the first book the best. Most sex.
Ah,
Most gratuitous, explicit sex.
well, can we take a break on that rather than my depressing
Yeah,
commentary?
please.
Excellent. Let's do that.
I'm gonna get more whiskey
We're
while
going
we're
to
on
take an
break.
intermission. When we come back, we will discuss our favorite moments from the book and if this book made us want to get naked.
We're back. I have more whiskey.
Excellent. We are back and we are talking about Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, and really the whole
Nailed
series.
it. 2 for 2.
Oh
You
man,
got it.
and today is a talking day, you guys. Today my whole
Yay.
mouth is working.
Today is a bones day, not a
Yes,
no bones day.
that's exactly right. Okay, so we're going to talk about our most compelling moment in the book, and
Yeah.
I feel like yours is very good, and mine is going to be the
Thank you.
reading of my Goodreads review of this book, originally read in 2016.
Let's start with yours, which I know and have on good authority is a total bummer, and then we'll do mine, which you've claimed is very good, and I'm very proud of myself.
Okay, so by the way, we're talking about favorite moments in the book, so now you know.
Your favorite moment is your Goodreads review.
Yes, that is my favorite moment.
So check
Okay, so
I'm
this is
just
what it
blocking
says
that. Right.
in full caps: abandoned. Bleh. It just keeps getting worse and worse. I don't usually abandon books, but this one's too boring to continue. World building is non existent, main character is in limp noodle, and the atmosphere is all fog. Gray, boring, know nothing fog. Snooze. 1 star.
Limp noodle. I would argue that it's very gray and foggy in the Highlands.
Agreed. Agreed.
That's just literal.
Yes, yes. I literally was like, it's always gray and nothing happens. Despite the fact that like a bunch happens, I just slogged through it. Obviously, at some
Sure,
point,
sure,
I
sure,
did
sure.
finish it because I know how it ends. So I did not ultimately abandon it.
Right.
That is just the review I wrote.
That's brilliant. I cannot remember, but I might have forced you to finish it. Well, not forced you, but, like,
That is what
annoyed you
happened.
so much.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you were like, you
Thank
have
you
to
for
get
your better memory.
you were like, you have to get to all those scenes in the back. And I was like, okay. And then I remember like having my like ski poles and like really slogging through the mud of trying to get to the end of this book.
This is ringing a bell because I think you would, like, text me. You'd just be like, "Hey, I'm at this part. When does it get better?"
Does it get
Like,
better?
"We're
Yeah.
almost there."
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's accurate for what happened.
brilliant. So my favorite part of the first book is probably the wedding scene. So when they're forced to get married to save Claire's life, I'm pretty sure she was going to be, like, tried as a witch if they didn't get married. Um, they, like, borrow a dress from somebody, and it's, like, this beautiful thing, but they're also getting married in this, like, quiet church in the middle of nowhere, and, like, and how they didn't actually know each other, but their marriage was ended up being the best thing for both of them, um, being the right relationship for the both of them, and how necessity was the seedling for love and perfect union. That just is hella romantic to me.
Oh, hard
Cool.
disagree. Hard
Okay,
disagree. I
alright,
mean, this is
okay.
definitely marriage of convenience, and there's only one bed,
Sure.
and there's only one dress, and there's only one pair of pants, whatever. But yeah, that wedding scene to me, I was like, don't touch him. No, 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 don't hold his hand. Oh, you're holding his hand now. Okay. Like, I had so many red flags and warning bells, and like, just hard no, yikes about it because
So
I actually don't remember the stakes being high enough
mm,
for her
mm,
to have to
mm,
go through this.
sure. I it's just becoming clearer more and more clear to me that this book lost you at panties,
Oh
at your
yeah.
panties.
Oh yeah, when in the very first inn when she chooses to dispose of her panties, I'm like, nope, hard no.
Yep, alright. Apparently anything in an underwearless society is not going to happen for Skye. What was your hot take on this book as if we don't already know it?
eh,
Sure. Great.
I will
1
give
star,
one
apparently.
star, exactly. I will give massive props to the show and to the depth of the show.
Mhm.
And I do think that less on screen rape is present in the show. There is definitely
Yeah.
implied sexual violence, but they have done a better job of focusing on the healing and the strength and the growth out of it, and less
Mhm.
time is spent on the gratuitous nature of its existence in the first place, because all of the ones in the first book and the ones in the second book, except for the French king one, are off screen. They're implied, but
Yeah.
they're not present, whereas they are definitely written on the page.
Spoiler for season 5. There's a lot
Cool, cool,
there's yeah,
cool, cool.
it's real bad. It I had to stop watching it. It was so bad. And not stop, I looked away, so I didn't have to watch it, but I didn't have to, like, stop altogether. Okay. Um, I my hot take is definite yes, hard yes for book 1, a yes for books 2 and 3, as I mentioned before, and then a reluctant for books 4 and 5. So, it my interest and excitement has dwindled as the series has gone on. Did this book make you wanna get naked?
There's a scene at the very end of the book where Jamie is at some sort of like recuperation resort and they have sex in a mud bath. And there's something about the concept of warm mud that is very intriguing.
So, we have learned definitively you need your labia to be warm for it to be
Yes,
sexy.
at all times, warm and moist. Yes, those are the
Oh,
requirements.
wow. Wow. I don't know, mud to me is too close to sand, perhaps.
See, to me, it's a lot softer and pudding-like.
Oh, you've just ruined pudding for me. How dare you ruin pudding for me? I just don't wanna think about mud inside my body.
Oh yeah, no, that is where I'm like curious, but not so curious as to have tried it.
I guess, like, if you're into mud play, do you also, douche? Is
I
that
mean, I feel like
necessary?
you would need to like make sure that all of the mud is out of your system.
Oh god, okay, I can't talk about this anymore. This is o offensive to my very being. Um, so this would make me wanna get naked. Absolutely. Jamie Fraser is my book boyfriend. Um, like, I should really just name a vibrator after him, like, that I'm very much into a tall, strong, redheaded Scottishman with an accent who also knows how to speak French. He speaks French, everybody. It's very nice. Um, I could do without him always getting hurt, like, that's too clumsy for me, cut it out, but looks good doing it, I guess. My god. You've ruined pudding and living in the past. This whole episode was a roller coaster.
I am so glad I took you there then. Hello and welcome to my TED Talk about underpants.
Woo! Underpants and mud sex. Mud play, mud play.
Mud play.
Oh my
Yes.
god.
They get out of the
Oh,
mud at some point.
I have no recollection of this scene whatsoever.
Yeah.
Probably because of how offensive mud play is to my sensibilities. I'm very delicate.
And on that note, let's send this to our end credits. Thank you for joining us for
Goodbye,
an episode
people.
of Booklandia.
For more Booklandia, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at l.skyford, Twitter at skyfordl, and hit up our blog, lskyford.com.
We love you to the moon and back, so don't forget to rate and subscribe.
Our eternal thanks for the audio editing and support provided by Finnegan Murphy, who you can find on Twitter at Finnegan1, that's FIONNEGAN, numeral 1, and sometimes Sky herself.